listening to the #1 talk business show in all of North Carolina. We've been doing this for 10 years, going strong. And I must tell you something. This is our 10th annual small business event of the year. We hope that this 3-hour commercial-free special edition of Local Biz Now will help you calculate the risk and help you live an intentional life. Because if it's WSIC, say it, Bill, say it.
Your business matters.
Yeah, Bill, who is our next guest, my friend?
Thomas Golden, and I've got to know Thomas this year through our Leadership Lake Norman program, and we are not going to do any artificial intelligence bio.
He's big wig.
We're going to do
big
a
time.
real
We can't
intelligence
do that.
bio.
Okay.
But I started looking at this, and I was saying, let's cut some of this out, and I said, nah, this is good stuff. And I want people to know this about Thomas. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Energy United. He provides day-to-day leadership, management, strategic implementation to achieve Energy United's vision of transitioning to a best-in-class energy services cooperative. He has direct oversight responsibility for creating and driving engagement across the organization in alignment with the strategic plan, along with partnering with the rest of the senior leadership team and board of directors to identify and develop growth opportunities, improve member value, enhance operations, and maintain superior safety and reliance performance. He's held a variety of other roles, and this is the thing I really want to impress, Joe. He's including program manager, technology innovation at Electric Power Research Institute, manager of energy market design, independent system operator, manager of technology management at Duke Energy, senior reactor operator, initial licensing program lead at Duke Energy's Catawba Nuclear Station, and he's a military veteran, serving 12 years on active duty in the U.S. Navy, where responsibilities included operating submarine nuclear reactors and land-based prototype nuclear reactors. Thomas continues to serve today in the Navy Reserve as a Supply Corps officer. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in nuclear engineering and in engineering physics from you'll have to say this later, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, as well as a Master of Business Administration from Wake Forest University. Thomas, it's great having you here. And one of the first things I want to start off with, because you shared this with the leadership group the other day, what is the difference between a co-op and, say, like Duke Energy?
Yeah, I mean, great question, Bill, and thanks for having me. And I was
You're always welcome, Thomas.
I was good to listen to Tracy for another hour or so, but I'll jump in there, I guess. But,
you got some tough shoes to fill coming after Tracy.
No doubt. So cooperative, I think, different from, say, investor-owned utility like Duke Energy is we are owned by our members who are our customers, right? So every single person of 138,000 meters that we have throughout North Carolina, every person who receives that energy owns this company. So we're non-for-profit, and we really are focused on only one stakeholder group, really. We're few, but really focused on our members every single day to give them what they want, which is that good, reliable, safe electricity, so they can do and power the things that they do every single day.
You know, gentlemen, we're talking with a nuclear engineer. You understand that? I'm not going to be able to keep up with him, so Chris, Justin, I'm going to need y'all to help with this. You understand that?
I got to call my brother-in-law, who is a nuke in the Navy as well, but now he's retired, and his wife is JAG in the Air Force, so I don't know if he remembers anything or not, but I'm sure he does because he's super smart, so I'll get him on the phone soon.
Okay, so
sounds like a good option.
I don't want to bring down the conversation, but I got to ask, what's it like in a submarine? I could not do it.
You want to bring down the conversation?
But wait, we should do it. We should do that video of Joe in a submarine for like 3 days.
No. Can we make that happen, please?
Talk about that, because there are a lot of people like me that only know it on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's pretty boring most of the time, and there's some times where it's pretty exciting, right? So a lot of the time you're just trying to pass the time, do the good work, study, get ready to be able to pass different tests and whatnot to be successful. But then sometimes there's a lot of action and there's a lot to do. I think Tracy was talking about mental toughness. I think it builds a huge amount of mental toughness for anybody who undertakes that profession. I mean, just thinking about leaving your family for extended periods of time, being underwater for extended periods of time. You've got to really learn how to work with people, how to be comfortable with yourself when you can find that time by yourself, and then not only that, but be effective and execute the job at hand. You can't, when you're operating a nuclear submarine, You don't want to have too many bad days. You want to have more good days than bad days.
right.
But the longest I've ever spent underwater is 55 days without coming up. So just imagine locking yourself in this studio for the next 55 days, shutting all the windows and hoping for the best. So it's a challenge, but there's a great group of people out there doing that right now, every single day, 365 days.
So how does a guy do that and then end up CEO of a energy company? Walk me through. You don't have to go back to 1962, but walk me through what that looks like to get here.
I think I happened upon nuclear energy at a young age. I was 19 years old. I enlisted in the Navy. The Navy did great things for me. Appreciate every minute of it that I had. And it introduced me sort of the energy part of anything, which is in this case powering a nuclear submarine. But you can really make that transition from a nuclear submarine getting out of the Navy and then looking to see what the next job might be. Working at a nuclear power plant for Duke Energy was that first step. So it really went from the military to sort of the commercial use of energy, and then found my way at lots of different positions throughout the energy industry, kind of rounding off my experience and then ending up with EnergyUnited.
Not to take you off track, but is there a difference between the energy in the sub and the energy coming out of the power plant? Or is it the same thing, the concept?
Same concept, right? So
don't get into the details because I'm not going to understand it.
I mean, any energy that you're producing through turbines, you're finding a different mechanism to essentially burn or use to make that turbine spin. In some cases, it's the gas turbine, natural gas. Sometimes it's coal. Sometimes it's nuclear energy. So it really just depends on what the medium you're burning or using to provide that energy to spin that turbine, to spin that generator, which creates electricity.
Thomas, let's talk about nuclear, because I know a lot of people have apprehension toward nuclear, but it's probably the cleanest, most efficient form of energy.
Yeah, so I think nuclear has gone through lots of trials and tribulations in this country. You've had a few accidents here and there. You've seen when there was a resurgence of nuclear back, a decade ago, that you had that accident in Fukushima in Japan. So I think all these things scare people. And I think they also associate nuclear with nuclear weapons, and they're very much different. And I think that if we can get people past that mindset of if it's dangerous and it's going to blow up and all those different things that people imagine in the horror show movies that you see, it is a really clean, extremely reliable source of energy. A reactor plant, when you turn that thing on, when Duke runs that plant, it's running 18 months, 100% power, full out, then it shuts down, refuels, it gets back up again. Solar, winds, natural gas, all those other things don't have that kind of reliability to be able to provide 24/7, 365. So it really is a valuable resource. But I won't say that every resource is invaluable, right? I think, to me, the solution for it is diversity, right? Diversity of fuel sources ensures that when Russia invades the Ukraine and natural gas is spiked, we have other sources to tap into. And our members' bills aren't skyrocketing. We're able to control those costs because we have diversity of fuel source.
And like me, you work for a board of directors. So tell me the role that your board plays in management of your company.
Yeah, I think most of our members will be happy to know we've got a group of 9 members who are extremely dedicated to the cooperative. Now, these are just these are small business owners. Uh-huh. These are moms. These are dads. These are farmers. These are people who live in the community, and they represent the membership at large. So each of them has we have 3 districts, and there's 3 directors in each district, and they do a really good job of understanding what's important to our members and then providing the governance and the oversight of me to make sure that we're executing. We've got a $750 million asset that we operate called the electric grid for EnergyUnited on behalf of our members. So they have a really big job to make sure that the governance is in place and we're taking the right strategic direction to make sure that that asset lives and prospers from now and into the future.
So Thomas, we met, was it 4 or 5 months ago or so?
Yeah, something like
you
that.
were new, man. You were still shiny. You still had the new car smell, right?
Yeah.
How has it been? Have you had time to settle in, and is it what you thought it would be?
Yeah, so May 19th is 1 year. So you're right. You're about
okay.
You're
I
about
didn't
right.
realize
yeah.
it'd been okay.
So it is not exactly as I expected it to be. It is. I think it's more. I think it's an extremely exciting time to be in the energy industry, and we've got a fantastic, like I said, great board of directors, but we also got a great group of employees who care so much about what they do and the stakeholders and the members that they serve and the communities that we work in. They live in the communities that they work in. So when the power goes out, they get a call from their friends and neighbors and saying, "What's going on? Can you tell me?"
Amen. That makes a difference in almost everything.
And truly it does, because when those guys and ladies are out there working, they're looking to get it done so that church can go off on Sunday morning, or so that the high school game can go off like it was supposed to. All those things that happen in the community every single day, that group gets it done. And so I would say that I've been sort of blessed with the team that I've inherited, with the cooperative as it is. And every day is a challenge. It's a different challenge. Probably much like a small business owner, where you just don't know what's going to happen that day. You got to kind of just pivot, deal with it, be mentally tough, and move forward and get her done.
Chris, you got a question?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying, when you say these folks work in the community, it reminds me of the story. My brother's a lineman, works for one of the other subcontractors. Yeah. But the first time that he went out on storm, we were all there at my parents' house, and he had gone out on storm. I want to say it might have been around a holiday, and he kept calling home. He's like, "You guys got power yet? And I kept envisioning Matthew out there, just like, try this one, try that one. Yeah. But it was great, and he's had a lot of great experiences from that. Talk a little bit, if you would, for the small business owner. They think, okay, it's the power company. It's kind of like a sunken cost, and there's not a lot I can do about it. I know when the power bill comes before me at work, I'm like, yep, that is what it is. That's within the amount I budgeted, so we're good. And that's really all they think about it. What do you want, like, a small business owner to think about from the power company's perspective? Because there's like, okay, there's not a lot I can do with this. I can't necessarily go, get the luxury model of the power per se, unless, you're on a peak time or something. Talk a little bit about how you engage.
Yeah, I think what it's important for our small business owners and our residential members to understand is that we don't sort of rest on our laurels. We're consistently looking for ways to reduce costs and become more efficient as operators, right? So it's not about just being efficient, but it's also looking at, let's be frank. If you guys don't have power at your business isn't happening, right? So cost is obviously an important component of it, but also investing in the system and the reliability of the system so that you can get your job done every single day. If we're not doing that right, then we're screwing up everybody in the entire community. So it's about balancing that cost, trying to be efficient with the way that we're spending our money. And we're not for profit, so we're trying to just get the cost we need to run the business, and then also be very good about making sure the reliability and the safety is built into the system so you all can get your jobs done.
So, first of all, it must be wonderful being the guy that runs the company, because my small businesses, we got a line item. It's a fixed cost, right? Wouldn't it be great, Justin, to own the company that's part of the fixed cost?
Guaranteed income, that's what that's called, yeah.
So we are envious of that point of that. But that being said, there's this point of expectancy, which you hit on, that I want people to hear. If I choose not to get up in the morning, right? If I don't want to answer the call or the email, I'll get it a little bit later. You can't do that. It must be there, and your clients are expecting that. That is a different type of business.
To my wife and kids who are listening, they fully understand this, right? So December 24th, remember there was a huge amount of sort of challenge with the electric grid in the Charlotte area. That's not a day I'm at home, right? We're all at work, and our linemen and line ladies and line women who are out there every single day, they're out there and it's 2 degrees, right? And they're getting it done so that everybody else can get what they need done, right? We want to make sure that power's back on so that you can have that Christmas dinner or whatever it might be. And we can't call it in, right? We can't do that. We have to be there every single day, 365, 24 hours a day, ready to respond and take care of business for our membership. And we take that job with eyes wide open. All of us, we understand it. We want to do it. We think our mission's important.
Right. So let me see how to ask this question without Bill laughing at me. Okay. Where does because you don't produce your own electricity.
Well, a little bit, but
okay,
for the most part.
Like, where does it come from? Like, how do you get it? Right?
Yeah.
Without getting into the weeds, I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So if you think about your bill, back to sort of the question, 70 cents of every dollar is truly just to buy the energy. So the wholesale energy cost that we have to provide. So our energy comes from Georgia, many plants in Georgia. We do a thing we call wheel it through Georgia, through the Duke Energy system, and then to our distribution system. So think about a power plant sitting over in Georgia, and then the big transmission lines that you see, the big lattice-style transmission lines, all that energy flows over the state border into North Carolina, and then it gets delivered through the Duke Energy system over to our distribution poles, the smaller poles, and then to everybody's homes. And you might say, well, why does it come to Georgia, right? And another one of your questions was, how do we save money for our businesses? We're large enough at EnergyUnited where we're able to go out and really examine the market and see where the best prices we can get for our membership are. In the case of this, it was in Georgia, and it was less expensive for us to bring it in, a good, reliable source of electricity from Georgia over to North Carolina than it was directly from, say, Duke Energy, for instance. So we're constantly trying to innovate and find new ways to save that dollar but be reliable at the same time.
Do you run into any interesting, like, tax, accounting sort of stuff with your product coming across state lines like that? Is there anything to be considered, or am I getting too
you
too
way
detailed
into
with
the weeds now.
It's just kind of like, oh, that's neat. It's coming from a different state.
Yes. There's a million challenges. I mean, truly, because then you also have to think about the transfer from Georgia over, which is Southern Company, over to Duke Energy, and there's a lot of our bills are very complex. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thomas, I'm a fossil fuel guy. Okay, and the Biden administration or this administration wants to push us toward more the battery operated cars and such not. And the concern I have, and maybe I'm off base, but parts and stuff like that are coming from China, and China's not our friend. Where do you see the future of that if say we don't have a good relationship with someone who's not our ally?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, for me, I don't identify as a fossil fuels guy or a renewables guy. I'm sort of pragmatic, and I say, let's take a diverse approach to the way that we bring fuel to the electric grid. And I think that's the smartest way. Anybody who's in the business would I think, agree with me that that's the smartest way to do it. I think the thing that concerns us in our industry is the pace, right? So if you push this thing too fast, then you start to challenge things like reliability. And that's the last thing we want to challenge, right? I mean, cost is one thing, but if the lights are out, you're not looking at your bill at that point. You're saying, when are these lights getting back on? So if we go too fast into some of these areas without really thinking it through, thinking about the supply chain, thinking about manufacturing in the United States, I think we do set ourselves up for a challenging situation. And I kind of think of it or liken it to where with oil, we were so dependent on the Middle East for a very long period of time to make sure that oil kept pumping. If we get into a situation where we're looking for these rare earth minerals and other things that come from other countries, we just got to be cognizant and go into it with eyes wide open that could be a challenge in the future if we don't do it right.
You talk about one of the heaviest regulation-heavy sectors of the world, energy. Yep. How do you, as a small, small is relative, right? You guys are big in my mind, but small relative is the co-op and dealing with local, state, federal. How does a co-op of your size deal with all those different perspectives?
We try to punch above our weight, and we do it by, we're a cooperative. We all cooperate, but we also cooperate amongst cooperatives. So there's 26 cooperatives in North Carolina, so we all work together to really get our message out to North Carolina. And then there's like 900 cooperatives throughout the United States, and all of us work together to really get to the federal level and work together to make sure that our case is heard and really advocate on behalf of our membership. So 2 weeks ago, we were in Washington, D.C. We meet with all of our legislators and senators. We met with Senator Tillis. I know you had the video earlier today. And then
he said my name.
Yeah, I know. I heard that. Sorry. and then 2 weeks before that, we were in Raleigh, and we were doing the rally in Raleigh, and we were talking to all legislators then. And we have a constant sort of drumbeat of meeting and talking to them. And I think we punch above our weight because we serve very dense areas like down the Charlotte area, but we also serve very rural areas, and we have a lot of good connection with our legislators. And I think they respect our message because we are non-for-profit. We deliver to our members. We're not in it for anything other than making sure the community stays energized, empowered, and ready to do the things it needs to do. So I think they see us as sort of an unbiased view on how we think success can be brought.
You talk about cooperative, and I see EnergyUnited, Electricities, Duke Energy, all working pretty close together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we always kind of poke each other.
He gave a little smirk on that, Bill.
Yeah, well, we poke each other. We poke
There's
each other.
There's some stories we're not going to hear, Bill.
You're not going to hear some stories. That's right. That's true. But I think we all poke each other a bit, right? But at the big scheme of things, we all understand that the mission that we serve is a very challenging and hard job that we all have to do. And sometimes we have to lean on each other to help each other out in challenging situations. There's never a time where we're showing up one side of the street and they're on the other side of the street. We're kind of facing off. It's really about how do we work together to make sure that the energy keeps flowing in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So, we have that. We have a competitive edge to ourselves as well.
So Thomas, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Mike, and that is, how do you talk about or perfect the culture of your group of people, right? In your case, Mike was kind of interesting. He said he walks around and talks with them. In your case, some of them are up on a pole. So talk about setting a culture for a larger company.
Well, I think Mike makes a good point. It is about walking around and getting a feel for what the employees are doing on a daily basis.
That statement alone that both of you made surprises me. As much as I believe it as a small business person, I was surprised to hear that from both of you.
You get more out of that. I get more out of that than having 10 meetings, right? So today, for instance, this morning I was in Mocksville, and we have a thing called the pole top rescue where our linemen, if somebody were to become shocked at the top of the pole, they practice a technique to climb that pole, rescue that person, slowly lower them to the ground, and administer CPR. So this morning I had to go out there and spend 4 or 5 hours with our linemen who are going through that process. These were the guys who got the best scores, and they're going to go off to states. Whoever wins that competition to sort of represent.
Competing for
They were competing, right?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So there's a requirement to do it less than 5 minutes. These guys are doing it in like 2 minutes. These
wow.
are the best of the best. So. And those are probably the guys you want with you if you did get shot because
they're
going to save you, right? But I mean, going out there and spending 4 or 5 hours with them at lunch, I learned more today than I would have if I had 10 meetings with them because you're spending time with them. You're seeing, the body language. They're more willing to share things when you're in their work environment rather than you trying to bring them in and have a meeting, in my office, for instance.
Right.
So I think that's one way you really gotta walk around. But I think the other thing is that we really talk about empowerment at Energy United. Empowering every employee to go off and do what they do. We hire 250 really smart people. Why should I be telling them what to do, right? They know what to do. They operated a portion of our business better than I ever could think about operating it. So I like to think about we have 250 CEOs. And every one of those CEOs has an area of business that they're in charge of, that they're tasked with owning, and they go out and execute on it. And if, we work on that every single day. And I think once we achieve that sort of nirvana of everybody feeling that and feeling empowered to do that, you can't stop us.
So the other thing, Mike, I asked Mike a question I'm going to ask you, which is, okay, now you've hired somebody new. How do you bring them into this culture and this value? And Mike, I was envious because he had specific, direct program and process for new people. Us small business people, we just say, start on Tuesday, and get started. Talk to me about your process. I'm assuming you have one as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think it really starts with our interview process, right? Our human resource team gets out there and recruits people. They don't want for people to come to us. So they do a really good job of reaching out to people and saying, have you ever thought about doing this? Have you thought about the energy industry? And they get them excited about our business very early in the process. And if they're not, we probably don't want you, right? Because, you need to be excited about doing this every single day because of the holidays, the nights, and the weekends. So we try to recruit the people that we think would fit with our company very early just in that interview process and talk a lot about that, what's important to us, which is that member relationship, the community relationship. If we feel like those aren't qualities that they sort of subscribe to, then they're probably not the right fit for as well. Then we have a formalized process. They go through sort of an in-doc program where they learn about the company. We also try to send them to a co-op 101 class where they get to understand, co-ops were formed. Investor-owned utilities came in and they took, where can I serve as many customers as I possibly can for as cheaply as I possibly can? And they got them. They were in city areas. The co-op came from the farmers who were left behind out there saying, hey,
what about me?
We'd like energy too. And those farmers got together and they formed these companies to go and serve that energy to them. So we don't ever want to get lost. And James, you talked about the history of the radio station. The history of the cooperative is long, right? It's 80 plus years, and making sure that they understand that that's where we come from, that's who we represent. And if we ever lose sight of it, then we're not a co-op anymore, and we need to make sure that's top of mind. So we work through a lot of those different processes.
Let me ask you, when you went to the lineman event today, were you the guy who got shocked at the top and then they shaved you down, or how'd that go?
We have a little dummy. He weighs about 180 pounds up there. I could probably be a good dummy, but no thanks. But no, it's my biggest fear when I go to bed at night is I'm going to get a call in the middle of the night and somebody gets injured or shocked. And, to see those guys out there practicing that craft so that if it does occur and they can bring that person and give them a chance to get back at it, that's really where, safety is something we talk about every single day at Energy United, and it is truly the most important thing we do. I will tell you the only time that I'm not worried about getting the lights on is if our guys say, it's not safe to do it right now. You're not getting your lights back on. The most important thing that we can do is make sure that those guys and ladies come home safe every single day, and we can wait a little bit longer, and we'll eventually get them back on. But if it's an unsafe condition, we're not going to do it.
Thomas, you say that. I read a lot of books, a lot of business books, that is the number one thing large, successful CEOs say. The number one priority, safety.
100%.
Absolutely above all.
100%. If people feel, I mean, if you don't care about your people enough to do that, then
You shouldn't be in that
the
job.
CEO. You should not be the CEO. Yeah.
Thomas, you served in the U.S. Navy. Now you're a CEO of a company, but you're still serving in the Navy. Why do you do that? And first of all, thank you for your service, but why do you continue to serve?
I mean, I feel like the Navy has served me and my family so well. I'm getting towards the end here where I'm looking to retire pretty soon, but it's hard for me to pull away, right? There's a certain camaraderie that you get and a connection. And
I can tell you like it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, serving something bigger than yourself. I mean, I would invite any, I ask all my kids, like, go find something to serve bigger than you. And I think you get that feeling of being a part of something that's not about you. It's about somebody or some organization or some community that feels different than just consistently being me. And in the Navy, and how important is it? You talk about geopolitical issues that we're having, and if our Navy isn't there ready to fight, then we are in trouble. So, yeah.
Chris, you got a question?
Yeah, going back to kind of the setup of Energy United as a co-op, you've got more than many industries an exceptional impact when the weather hits in terms of uncertainty of cost, of recouping what Mother Nature has done. How do you plan for that?
So we, as far as like our commercial industrial customers, we always try to be out there in front and having conversations about maybe is there ways to build the system in a way that could we feed it from two separate points. That way, when maybe this line goes down, this one can still power the facility. So especially in processes that if the lights go out or there's a blink in power, it disrupts the whole production line. We've got to be really cognizant of how do we keep that line energized, and maybe there's some backup methods we can pull into place. So we're always trying to work with our members to find ways to be successful in keeping their power on and up and running. I think that was your question, but was there a second part?
Well, just kind of from the budgeting standpoint of how do you, we in other industries don't have that quite as much, but that's a big unknown because we don't know what the weather is going to do.
Yeah.
How do you plan for that in your budget each year?
That's a great question. I mean, we look at a lot of the historical trends to see where we were, but I will tell you that I think it's becoming more challenging as time goes on, and I've actually challenged my team to think about that a little bit differently. It seems to me that weather is changing. It seems like some of the events are more, and I'm not subscribing to climate change or anything. What I'm saying is it seems like some of our storms are more severe. Last summer, for instance, we had thunder showers that felt like they lasted for 2.5 months, and that's just consistent grind for our guys to get out there and have to put the lights back on. So trying to challenge our team to think about it. Don't just look at the historical, but is there anything we can look at more proactively to see what might be happening in the future that we can plan for and budget for? And the other thing that we try to do on behalf of our membership is when those storms roll through, if it's declared some sort of disaster, we fight real hard to make sure we go to FEMA and we get as many dollars back to our community as we possibly can so that we can offset some of those costs for our membership.
Until talking to you right now, I never thought about it. Your business is really dependent on weather. I mean, I would have never actually given much thought to that. But, of course, I don't give much thought to flipping my light on, right? Yeah.
And we like it that way, right? Because, I mean, we are victims of our own success in some ways that most people don't think about us because we're successful 99.9% of the time. We're successful at you flipping that switch and coming on. So we're only often thought about when the bill comes in or when the power is out for an extended period of time. And we're trying to change that, though, because there's a lot happening in the industry, like you said, Bill, and we want people to understand that we are out there as advocates trying to make sure that we're informing regulators and lawmakers and others about things that we see that are important to make sure that we maintain that high level of reliability and that that affordable cost that we have today. So.
Well, what's interesting is now when I look at that bill, I'm going to think about those weathers in 24 hours. It makes that bill look a whole lot different, right? Yeah. Yes, Justin.
As we look at the landscape of the Lake Norman area and the growth that is occurring in the infrastructure that's needed to be added, what does that look like for you guys on your growth map, and where are you at percentage-wise to where you think you need to be, or how can we quantify it?
Yeah, I would say, so we have a thing called a construction work plan, which basically is what dollar amount are we investing on a yearly basis to grow the grid and make sure the grid stays maintained. We spend about $35 million a year in that endeavor to make sure that we're consistently providing that reliable, good energy. And that has grown significantly over time, not only because our communities are growing, but also these communities that have grown are now aging, right? And that infrastructure requires consistent maintenance, at least from my perspective. You need to be maintaining it just like your car so that when you want it to work, it's going to work. Others maybe have chose a different route where they don't invest until it's broken. We try to be proactive in our investment and make sure that we're maintaining the system we built, not just responding reactively to problems that we see.
So, Justin, I just got a text from my wife. She wanted to remind me we have Energy United, not to upset the man who's...
Well,
What's the address?
I do as well.
We were going to get there.
Both the WSIC studio in Cornelius has it, and also my house as well. So, would you go ahead and share your cell phone number?
Yeah. Can we get you some water or something? Would you?
That's right.
And the Chamber of Commerce.
That's right.
Joe, I'll tell you something. I don't even know that Thomas knows this. You mentioned tonight I've been around the Chamber of Commerce since 1996, 28 years. The board chair that hired me was Daryl Geddes from Crescent Electric, which was the predecessor of Energy United. So I want to thank Energy United for my job. But Daryl Geddes was a fantastic board chair. He was really the year before me, even though he was the one that hired me, but did a fantastic job.
Yeah, we got good people. I can't brag on them enough. From our board to every single employee, we just have people who care about what they do and they care about the mission. It's hard not to be excited to go spend time with them every single day.
So we don't have much time. Yeah. I'm curious, is there something you'd like to say to this person getting ready to start a new job? Because you're in it for about 12 months, right? Mm-hmm. So talk about what advice you might give somebody thinking about starting, based on this group, anything new, right? What did that feel like for you, and what advice might you give them?
My 6-year-old son, just got his first job, and he started yesterday. And I tried to tell him, and he's 16, so he thinks I know nothing. But I try to tell him that you're building your character today for whatever job you have. And now today, you might think working at the pizza place isn't all that important, and there's not a tremendous amount of value to that. I said, but what you do today is going to build what you're going to do when you are the CEO of the company. So you really want to start that process today of building who you are as an employee or as a business owner, so that when you arrive at that future you're going to, you've got the skills and the talents necessary to be successful at it. So I would say that. And then the other thing is, I'd say the first year, I like to jump into everything I can. Try to just sort of take it all in, and then you can start to, over the next couple of years, start to sort of bring that down to a more manageable level. But that first year is just rough in my mind, because you really got to get a hold of everything that's in front of you,
right?
Digest it, and then move forward.
So what advice would you give somebody like my buddy Chris, my mentee, right? He's mid-level media. I don't want to give away where he's at, but he's mid-level TV
Justin doesn't want to give us the free promo.
It doesn't bother me, but the mid-level part is the part that I thought was funny. The description of it.
He can call me whatever he wants.
It's mid. I can't give him any more than mid-level, but he wants to be the CEO. What advice would you give him? What path should he look at to do that? Because it's not easy to get where you're at, right? That's not an easy move.
I think you've got to be selfish with your career at the beginning. I think you've got to really look at it and say, is there a future? Do I like this place so much and there's a future there that I'm willing to be patient with it? And if you're not willing to be patient, then you have to be willing to jump and move. And if you're not willing to jump and move and you're just going to hang out, you can't complain about it because it's your own fault, right? Mm-hmm. I really think that you need to really understand if you're not getting what you want from the company you're in, and you don't see some sort of really important reason to be there, then you need to have the guts to jump and go try something different, and do it in a way that you're sort of rounding yourself out in that industry, so you can be somebody that people are looking for to fill that gap, because you've got so much experience that's relevant that you're ready to go and jump in that next position. So I'd say be brave. How about that?
Thank you, Thomas.
Love it.
You're talking to Thomas Gold. Thomas, you, my friend, are the CEO of Energy United. Thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I've had you on Local Biz Now, and we look forward to having you back on again, my friend.